This episode of Quiply Reviews contains strong language and verbal sexual material from film content featured in the episode. You've been warned. What's up, guys? Dave here, and this week on Quiply's review series, our first episode, I'm going to be doing a review of the 1997 film Chasing Amy. Now, on this series, we will be reviewing films in depth each week with 5 different ratings that will build up into an overall rating. These ratings will be on my initial watch through, the acting, the writing, the production, and the directing. All of these will average out into a final score, leaving us with a good idea of what we think of the movie.
Holden McNeil was set in his ways. The way he worked, the way he lived, and the way he thought love should be. But then, she showed up.
Chasing Amy, directed by one of my favorite directors, Kevin Smith, is a romantic comedy that I think stands out in the subgenre. It follows Holden, a comic artist, who meets another comic artist named Alyssa. Naturally, Holden falls in love with her confidently flirty personality, but is slipped up when he comes to find out that she is a lesbian.
You want me to hang it for you? You better hope it doesn't get out to the girl nation. You needed a man to help you hang a picture.
I chose this movie for our first episode because something notable about Kevin Smith's movies is that they benefit greatly from the fact that he writes and directs them. He's a clever storyteller, and this movie is a perfect showcase of that skill. So I do a first watch-through score because some people don't want to sit through a whole in-depth review. Upon my first watch, I can definitely recommend the movie for anyone who wants a good, kind of funny, simple drama. Kevin Smith has always been good at making a movie that will make you look at something differently, and Chasing Amy shows that from a romance point of view. Some things that stand out to me in a positive way are that Jason Lee is hilarious.
What's a Nubian?
Shut the fuck up!
The script was very witty and has plenty of good dialogue and jokes.
Calrissian was a black guy, you know. He got to fly the Millennium Falcon. What's the matter with you?
Who said that?
I did. Lando Calrissian is a positive role model in the realm of science fiction fantasy.
Fuck Lando Calrissian, Uncle Tom, nigga.
And I love catching the connections between Kevin Smith's movies, what is called the View Askew universe. Some things that kind of bothered me about the movie are that the soundtrack can be way too overbearing at times and just too much a part of a scene, and it definitely dates the movie. Ben Affleck can be a bit stiff in his acting, and the story may make people cringe at times. Some of the characters do some things that just make you wonder why Kevin Smith wrote them that way, but I think the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. That's pretty much my notes for the first watch through, though, and if you don't want to hear a bunch of film nerd talk, you can stop watching or skip to the end for the scores. So now I'm going to go over what I thought of the acting in the movie. I think Kevin Smith has always found a way to cast actors that fit roles perfectly. I've never watched a Smith movie and thought that a particular actor is really chopping up a role with a different style or demeanor. Like I said before, I love Jason Lee in the movie. His comic relief definitely makes the movie funnier. The girl in question, Alyssa, is wonderfully played by Joey Lordan-Adams. She really nails a flirty young girl who has an edgy kind of personality. Again, like I said before, Ben Affleck can be a bit stiff throughout the movie, but it kind of helps his character, as he is playing a guy who we are supposed to low-key hate because he is always making poor decisions. Aside from the various appearances we see throughout the movie, from Smith himself to Jason Mewes, Matt Damon, Brian O'Halloran, and even a little role from Affleck's kid brother, Casey. One other performance I thought was noteworthy was Dwight Ewell's performance as Hooper. He definitely does a good job at not only playing a role that is a voice of reason in the movie, but making it very convincing. Now for one of my favorite parts of the movie, the writing. Kevin Smith is notable for writing most of the movies he directs. This movie in particular is definitely a good example of Kevin Smith's writing skills. I think two of the most important parts of writing in a movie are telling a compelling and interesting story, and making the dialogue interesting. This movie accomplishes both of these tasks really well.
So I spent every day since then chasing Amy. So to speak.
The story is different from a lot of romantic comedies, and brings some interesting aspects of romance into the mix. It's also kind of satisfying, in a bittersweet kind of way, that the story's resolution isn't necessarily a happy one.
The only thing that matters is how you feel about me.
I don't know how I feel about you right now.
Why? Why? Because I had some sex?
Some sex?
Yes, Holden, that's all it was. Some sex.
And then beyond the story, the dialogue is very witty. Kind of fast-paced, but it engages you to really listen into the antics.
I'm sure you can dry your eyes on all those fat checks you rake in.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that? Did I detect a note of bitter envy in there?
Nope, I'm happy my stuff gets read at all. There's very little market for hearts and flowers in the spandex-clad, big pecs, big tits, big guns field.
Now, this part of the review, I don't have much to say about. I talk about the production in the film as far as the set design, things that are just kind of in the background that aren't directly affected by the writing, acting, or directing. There are a few things I think are particularly funny about the set design in this movie. For example, there was a set during a particular fight between Affleck and Adams, in which they are supposed to be driving through New York City during a rainstorm. And when they get out of the car, there are just boxes everywhere, and the background looks kind of like some sort of darkly lit bazaar setting. It's weird and I never caught it before, but it's kind of a big hit on the score of the production. It just seems kind of weird to me. I mean, why would you go and film on a set that doesn't even look like the setting of your story when you could go on location for probably half the price and find a really good moment in the movie? So as a final point of the review, we gotta go over Kevin Smith's job as the director on the movie. I've been saying it throughout the video, but Smith does a fantastic job at making the movie blend together into a pleasant world that you want to look into. And with his connections between his movies, he adds a bit of personality and lore to the movie. Something I always thought was interesting about his style, as he often tries to relate it to comic books in some way, something he does heavily in this movie. It creates this comic book motif that makes his movies so nostalgically enjoyable. He also uses actors over and over in his movies, which is kind of a classic move that makes people recognize his work even more. So that brings us to the scores section of the show, where I will be taking my thoughts from each section of the video, giving them a score out of 10, and averaging those scores out into one final score. So after all I said from the first watch through of the movie, I would give the first watch a score of 8 out of 10. For the acting, a solid 7 out of 10. I'll give it a 7 out of 10 because beyond Affleck's stiff acting, some of the other actors don't necessarily nail the emotions they're trying to portray, and I thought that was kind of noticeable, too noticeable for it to get more than the 7. The writing gets an 8 out of 10, being a strong point of the movie. The production gets a 5 out of 10, as there were a few things that I think hurt its score, especially the scene between Affleck and Adams in the rain. And finally, I give Kevin Smith a strong 8 out of 10 for his directorial job. So when we average all those scores together, we come to a final score of 7.2 out of 10, which I think is plenty fair. The movie is best for its narrative, but it's nothing that would have stood out for an Emmy race. So guys, that's going to do it for this video. Next week I'll be coming back at you with a review of our new movie of the month, Doctor Strange. I'm definitely excited for this one. I'm a huge Marvel fan, and I caught a sneak preview of the movie just a few days ago, and it's going to be fantastic. Anyway guys, like this video and subscribe to us if you want to stay up to date. Go check out the other video on our channel right now. Sterling is doing a whole overview of the X-Men series, and I think it's going to be really good. He has some great points to make. Anyway guys, I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching Quiply.